Hello and welcome to our latest and greatest edition of Better Together Arizona. We are so fortunate today to be joined by some prolific leaders in the Black and Greater Arizona community. Today we want to recognize and celebrate Black History Month and also talk about the impact of these great leaders and Black history on our community. Before we get started, I want to give each of our guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. Teniqua, will you start us off?
Thank you, Angela. I'm Teniqua Broughton. I serve as the CEO for the State of Black Arizona, a data repository around issues and concerns as it relates to African Americans across the state. We execute our work through reports, publications, and running the African American Leadership Institute in Phoenix and Southern Arizona.
Dr. Treyham.
Yes, I'm Dr. Velma, the president and CEO of the Arizona Black Chamber of Commerce. We support businesses across the state in the areas of access to capital, contracting readiness. We're even supporting the youth, which is our next generation. I do a lot of work nationally as well, but in Arizona, that's what we're doing. 26-year-old organization, and I'm honored to lead the chamber.
And you've been leading for just under a year now, right?
Yeah, it has. It's been a little under a year. I don't know why it actually feels like
it's been a little
decade.
longer than
It
that.
really does.
Well, we're so grateful that you're at the helm of the Black Chamber of Arizona. And Dr. Whitaker, please introduce yourself.
Dr. Matthew Whitaker, Phoenicia native. I'm the executive director of the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center, where we archive and curate Black history and life and focus on the three C's in African American history and life, and that's culture, consciousness, and custom. So we like to be a safe space for evocative conversations relating to African American history and life, and to the extent that we partner with other communities to ensure that our community is as healthy as it can possibly be.
Well, the health of community is definitely important and top of mind these days. So a question for you all. What does Black History Month mean to you, and why is it so important to take this time to recognize Black contributions to society? Who wants to kick us off?
I feel like Dr. Whitaker, you should,
I'm
because you're like the historian.
I'm happy to. I saw three people looking my direction, so I'm happy to. No, it means a lot of things, and I think just in some of the notes that I jotted down, and we're going to talk about one of them in just a second, but strength, number one, resilience in the face of unspeakable horrors and lingering horrors, quite frankly, courage, which in many ways I believe is on short supply right now. Not in our community specifically, but writ large. I think creativity, right? Consistency. Those are the things that Black history reminds us of. And the fact that you can be all of those things, even though you might be discriminated against, segregated against, you might be treated poorly, whatever the case may be. And I think it also reminds us that history ebbs and flows. For every step backwards that we might take, there's an antidote to help move us forward. So right now, we'll probably talk about this, there are a lot of people feeling confused, desperate, right? Looking for answers. And I would like to say Black history can teach us where to find the answers and how to comport ourselves and move forward even when we don't have them.
You know, I'm so glad you say that. In our LGBTQ plus community, we have so many folks that are reaching out, in particular our young folks who are very distraught right now and very concerned about the state of our nation and their own safety. And I find myself reminding them to look at our community's history and how far we have come and to really work their resiliency muscle, right? Because it's going to take all of us and a lot of strength, I think, to get through these very heady times, right?
Indeed.
Anything you want to add?
I'm going to add, because I want to build off of what Dr. Whitaker said. So I'm thinking about three words because I feel like, resilience has been one of my words this year, but I feel like at this present moment, even today, guts, grace, and grit, when I think about it, and to recognize that all of those things are occurring and happening on both perspectives as I think about how Black people need to show up, but also how we are showing up in these spaces. And so for me, that's why I think it's important. I also really think it's important because we can never assume, and this we know, is that the history of even African Americans in Arizona isn't known by most Arizonans. And even when I think about the work that we do, we are always educating people through the use of Dr. Whitaker coming to a session to let folks know who've migrated here from somewhere else that this is where our legacy is and this is the landscape. So for me, it is operating and thinking about the continuous guts, grace, and grit that you have to operate in Arizona, but also to recognize that the legacy pieces of what has happened before us must be centered and shared so that doesn't get lost.
Wow. I'm going to piggyback off of Dr. Whitaker and Teniqua. And since we're using three words, I am going to use the three words I'm going to use is reflection, celebration, and action. Reflecting on how far we've come. Celebrating on the achievements of what was done for us to actually walk in the freedom that we're actually walking in and the purpose that we're actually walking in. And then celebrating the achievements of what we're doing right now and how we will continue to move the needle forward regardless of the administration that is in office, regardless of who wants to or tries to dismantle our history and our culture. That's something that will never go away. And so I think that when I think about Black History Month, I think about, and it's not just a month for me. It's 365 days
a year.
A year
Every
Yes.
day.
of
Every day.
reflection, celebration, and action. Action meaning that there are things that we need to do today and to continue to do to instill principles, to instill the information that's just not information, but that leads to transformation, because we do have a responsibility to educate our constituents and our communities to move the needle forward. There is a very important book that's one of my favorite books, and it tells us that our people perish for lack of knowledge. And so when I think about action, we have to continue to take action to move the needle, again, regardless of the administration in office.
And to educate, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
and I feel like so many people are not deeply educated on so many things that are going on right now, right? They might know the surface or the headline. They don't actually understand all the things that are really going on. Beautiful, just from all three of you. Dr. Whitaker,
Yes.
how does the Carver Museum work year-round to preserve history, right? And how does recognizing and acknowledging our history really help us move forward,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we do the inner stuff, the boring stuff, which is constantly going out, conducting research and searching for artifacts, material culture, primary resources, diaries, government documents. We just found a 1927 commencement program from a Carver graduation, right? And even those tidbits can give you a sense of what the elders were thinking. Their motto that year was, it's not good enough to be good. We have to be better. And I think that still holds true for today. I was raised being taught that your excellence will be viewed as being inferior. Think about the conversations now about DEI, right? So you are inferior by virtue of what you look like, and you are a DE higher by virtue of what you look like. So we were told that, and we try to maintain that. We also host events. We have programs that deal with contemporary issues and give safe spaces for people to come and be themselves in an area where they don't have to worry about what the iconography on the walls are, what music we're playing, what somebody is saying on the microphone. We can just be ourselves, right? Because so many of us are civil servants and work in government offices where right now that level of freedom is under attack in terms of what you can put on your desk, what's on the wall. So that's what we do. We focus on the 3 C's: culture, consciousness, and custom in Black history and life. And we reach out to other communities, because no community is an island unto itself, to make sure that we are in conversation so that we are making our community stronger together. And we do that every day.
Yeah. No, when you said, when you talk about civil servants and the concern of being themselves under this current climate and administration, the thought that came to my mind was the fear of putting a picture of my partner on my desk prior to One Community because I could be fired. And the fact that in this state we still don't have equal protections for LGBTQ people, and it is not unlawful to fire someone if you work for a small employer unless you're in one of the municipalities that has adopted equal protections, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. And if I may,
yeah.
I have two moms. So, and one of them is African American, one of them's white. So they're frustrated right now. Both of them recently retired because they are now feeling as though they've been put in a time warp. They've been taken back to the 1970s, 1980s. When I was growing up, we had two phones. We never shopped in our own neighborhood. They were teachers, so of course that was very stressful. We had two mail boxes where the mail came to two different people as though they weren't living there. And throughout the entire time that they were teaching, most people didn't even know that they were a couple. And here we are in 2025, back where folks are feeling the same sort of angst and concern, and it just reminds me of the need for us. I said courage earlier, to understand that there's never a moment where we can be comfortable in a situation where roughly half of the population, or perhaps more, is some sort of way about this progress that we made. I've always said we've been fighting the Civil War by proxy for 150 years. It's not over. And that's why people are so surprised, because they think that somehow the Civil War was adjudicated 153 years ago. It has not been.
Well said. A lot to think about.
Needed a moment.
Okay, so courage, and we're big believers at One Community that the business community plays a big role in like socially responsible advocacy and moving our state and our nation forward, right? So how can businesses and folks like me be a good ally to the Black community in our great state and then beyond? And then again, also, this isn't just about Black History Month, right? This is about 365, right? How do we show up for members of the Black community and in Arizona and nationwide, and just be walking alongside of you all?
And I know this is more, Velma, you do this every day, but I think I want to say this on our behalf because there should be no confusion. 365 days, we support the Black community by running organizations that are needed and necessary in the community, whether they're resourced or not. We know we are here to serve and to be of service. And for that, we hope that people understand that is why you need to support, because someone has to sacrifice. And I believe in each of our organizations that is happening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wish I could just drop the mic. So to piggyback off of Teniqua, I will say that we're stronger together, we're greater together, and we cannot fight these battles on our own. And so one of the things that I think is important when I think about internal battles within the Black community, and I want to go there for a quick second. Some of the internal battles are some of our Black gatekeepers, right? And so when I think about why we need allyship, there's a lot of resources that we need that we don't have. We are under-resourced. And when I think about systemic barriers in terms of a lot of people born into wealth, born into resources, born into generational wealth, the Black community traditionally is born into poverty. In order for us to get ourselves out of poverty, we're going to need the allyship, we're going to need the partnership, and we're going to also need to realize that it is some of our people that keeps us, our communities, systemically in bondage. And so we need a breath of fresh air at times. And you guys are a breath of fresh air, and I'll just leave that there.
Well, we're here, and I think it's about generational wealth,
Yep.
and I think it's about leaving it better than you found it. And I know for us, we really take the opportunity that we have at One Community and the responsibility that we have very seriously to help to help other organizations in this great state, because we're all striving for the same thing, right? Which is to create a sustainable future for everyone in this great state and an opportunity for all of us to thrive, not just to survive, right?
Everybody has to.
Everyone.
When I think about the state of Black Arizona, our work is included in being able to um, really showcase disaggregated data for that 5-6% of the population, which is very close to the margin. It will require me to have allies that don't look like me. It will require me to partner with people who have resources that maybe we don't have in our community. So I can't actually do the work and the mission of the organization unless I have allies outside of those who look like me. And I need people to know that the state of Black Arizona exists for all Arizonans. You know, while our stakeholders and who we want to make sure is seen, heard, and valued as Black people, every single person in this is a part of being able to make that mission.
In the solution, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I have said for years to our team, I'm like, we are not having a good day if I'm the one doing the talking. That, you know, our job is to build the biggest, broadest stage we can possibly build and to empower our allies to take on the mission of equal treatment for all Arizonans and to become the embodiment of what we are striving for, which is a state that truly celebrates, respects, and protects us all equally, right? And if I'm the one up front, then we're doing it wrong. So allyship, I think, is key. Okay, Dr. Trayham and Teniqua, you both work in the communities to support Black entrepreneurship, and Teniqua more specifically areas of economy, education, and healthcare. Tell us about your respective organizations' programming and advocacy in this area.
Okay, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Well, we support 5 areas. So economics, education, healthcare, civic life, and infrastructure. But most specifically, I'll talk about things that we're working on to date that I think really tie back to what is currently happening. So our work specifically in the economy has been around the state of Black business work that we've done in partnership with GPEC. I've seen a lot of light just go into the community, paying attention to what our business owners and entrepreneurs have and don't have. And while access to capital could be the center of that, it's so much more deeper than just accessing it and being ready for it, but understanding how it shows up and helps people either grow and scale. And so examples of where we've been able to help and advocate in that space is years ago talking to the House and the House Ways and Means Committee about understanding that at the time, a lot of Black entrepreneurs were getting payday loans. And while they wanted to really work to increase, you know, the amount, so somehow that would deter people. If you cannot get loans from traditional banks, while they're getting those loans as they're set for personal, they actually are using them to build business. So we are continuing to keep systemic issues in place if we set policy like that. And so being able to share that was like an aha moment around them saying, we need to take a moment and pause and think. Also in the space of our healthcare, we're doing a lot with maternal health. And I've been really excited just to be able to see, you know, how the governor is wanting to work to support that space. But I'm recognizing that there is a long journey to change and really undo a lot of the systems issues that we have here. It's not just about pouring money in it, but it's actually about listening to Black women and recognizing what their needs are and not just deflecting. So we've had the opportunity to put out a number of white papers in partnership with March of Dimes and working with South Phoenix Healthy Start and a few others. But what I love about this particular work that we're doing is we're trying to approach it differently by not just saying, we see the numbers, here's this, but recognizing like strategy must show up differently. It cannot be one size fit all. So just 2 weeks ago, we were down at the Capitol for March for Change and being able to talk to a lot of our representatives about a number of bills coming up of how reproductive rights does affect us, and that at the end of the day, it's human rights. And we deserve to have the human rights that are owed to us. And even in that same space years ago, under our healthcare work, we did a number of gatherings around rare diseases. Rare disease doesn't get talked about, but even yesterday, just submitting my own voice and letter around trying to get a local rare disease committee, because a lot of people may not know when it comes to rare disease, Black people, especially Black men, are affected around cardiac ambulosis and sickle cell. And so I have been an advocate constantly writing letters, being able to be at the forefront of that. So State of Black Arizona's work doesn't just land on a paper. It also is the relationships and partnerships that we have in the community that take action for this.
And you're moving policy forward for a healthier Arizona and for a healthier community. Dr. Trayham, you want to follow up?
Sure. When I think about the work that we're doing for the business community at the Black Chamber of Arizona, it is really all about closing that racial wealth gap.
Mm-hmm.
And helping businesses to rise above the poverty line. The 95% of our economy are small business owners, and many of them, statistics and data shows that 1 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 new businesses fail within the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And the reason, a lot of it is really around the resources and the capacity building aspect of building successful companies. So when I think about how do we close the racial wealth gap, number one, it's access to understanding contracting readiness, right? Understanding how to go after contracts, not just hearing that that contracts are there, but how do we prepare our businesses to actually have the operational infrastructure to go after contracts, to win contracts, to create job opportunities, and to become employer firms. And so that is really the focal point of the work that I do at the Black Chamber of Arizona. Now, I'm not saying that we're not focusing on smaller mom and pop businesses. What I am saying is that in order to move the needle, we need to create more employer firms. Mm-hmm. And in order to create more employer firms, businesses need to have access, or they need the operational infrastructure. When I think about my journey and, being an entrepreneur, selling businesses and having helped now more than 8,000 businesses across the country to build capacity, it's been by way of contracts. Mm-hmm. It's been by way of navigating the contracting landscape to understand how do you build a successful company. And so I take pride in that. And when I think about really the Black community and when I think about our underserved community in, as one, I think that having the resources and someone that has and organizations that has the know how to build companies is important. And so, yeah, I can say a lot about that. And
I want to jump in because
okay.
I think Velma is also an example of being able to respond to our data. Mm-hmm. So when I talked about, how we focus on those Black owned businesses or entrepreneurs, when she said, we want to focus on employer firms, in our reports, we were very clear. If we're going to do any wealth creation, we need to actually look at what are those areas. So we need businesses that are around here longer than 5 years, 5 to 7 years. We need businesses that
to
are
understand the history and how to
understand the history,
so that you can, it's teachable.
It's teachable, and then we need more employer firms, which those employer firms are people who are on W-2s, and so we actually can't really establish the power that we want if we're not building things where we are the producers of it,
yeah.
not That's just right. the consumers. And so I love that her focus is responding to aspects of that data.
And just to add to that, and also when I think about closing the racial wealth gap, there are high impact industries such as manufacturing, mm-hmm. such as healthcare, such as transportation, real estate, that we need to get more of our underserved businesses into, because growing up, the only thing you hear is, barbecue shop, ice cream shop, barber shop, and some of these, individuals that are selling product, and that's great. But how do we get the product on the shelves in major retail chains?
Right.
How do we get the product on the shelves, right? And so that's kind of the focal.
Having your own shelf, having your own bank, shelf. Having your own store.
And so even to that, before I pass the mic, so a lot of people are talking about, hey, Let's blackball, whatever they call it, Target, right? My stance on that is this. Let's not talk about blackballing anybody, but how about 5 entrepreneurs coming together to become the next Target, to create a business infrastructure that you can create the next Target, right? And so I think that we really need to focus more
on what we're for.
What we're for.
I
building
don't get this.
economic
Like,
impact.
The amount of time and energy people spend on what they're against, right?
Yes.
like what are you for, right? And our initial tagline when we launched One Community was "You vote with your wallet every day." So support businesses that are aligned with your values, right? I mean, and so. I think, the work that you're doing with the Black Chamber can be to lift up these Black entrepreneurs, teach them to collaborate. So, I mean, you do better together when you work in a collaborative way. And what are you for, right? And how do you move forward?
I want to talk to business owners that are saying, hey, I want to create the next Target. I want to create the next whatever, all of this, right? Yeah. Because data shows that 40% of Fortune 500 companies in the past 10 years has been displaced to innovative entrepreneurs. Those are the people that I want to talk to.
And I wanted to jump in simply to thank them for their work and to say it's immensely important. In part, one of the hats that I wear is I'm a business owner. We need to talk about me joining.
We all are business owners.
We all business owners, right?
You need to join the Black Chamber.
Right. So other than running a nonprofit, which is still a business, by the way, a lot of people forget nonprofits is a business, but
the NFL is a nonprofit.
And the NFL is right. It's a $1 billion nonprofit. But one of the things that's important, I run a company called Diamond Strategies, right? So in addition to idea, inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, we do leadership, we do organizational development, conflict resolution, whatever the case may be. One of the reasons why I created Diamond Strategies was to operationalize what I was doing in other areas and to give me some autonomy. One of the things that African American history teaches us is that after Reconstruction, one of the first things that Black communities wanted to do was own their own labor. Mm-hmm. They didn't go out in mass to try to become teachers. That was a part of it, or nurses. That became a part of it. First thing they wanted to do was own land and create their own businesses because that would lead to their own social and economic autonomy. Right now, we're vulnerable because the majority of who is our educator have a professional position work for the civil service. Guess who's under the attack right now?
Yeah.
This is why I tell people all the time, and I tell my own kids, I don't care what you do. You need to start a business. You need to have something to fall back on that's yours, that answers your why, that speaks to your joy, right? Because at the end of the day, when we're in situations like this where the community is under attack, the attack usually comes at your pocketbook.
Well, I think the attack is definitely coming at all diverse communities' pocketbooks right now.
Without a doubt.
Right?
Without a doubt. This isn't about the attack. It isn't about DEI. This is about doing what we've done in the United States since its birth. The biggest myth is that the United States is about competition. No, it's not. It's about eliminating competition. That's why you eliminate 4.9 million Black folks before slavery ended. That's why you give women no rights, so no competition. That's why you sequester the LGBTQ plus community.
Well, and you're going after the most vulnerable members of our community, our transgender community.
Right. This has not been about competition.
No.
This is about eliminating competition.
Okay, Matthew, you dove in. So it's a little hot in here.
It is hot. I'm feeling the
All right.
Well, the truth with these things.
All right, let's go. I swear, there's nothing in these coffee cups. All right, let's talk. Let's dive into this. Right, the current political climate. Let's talk about the importance of DEI and what's going on. Right, how is this impacting you?
Well, most of the people who are attacking it don't even know what it is.
Yeah,
right.
They don't know what it is, and if they knew, some of them wouldn't be attacking it. Why? Because some of the key aspects of DEI are just fundamentally good business practices.
Well, yeah, and I keep seeing this, we're going to return to merit-based, and I'm like,
Nonsense.
DEI is merit-based.
It is merit-based, and most of the folks who are accusing it of not being merit-based got where they are not because of merit.
Correct.
Because of connections, because
Correct.
of relationships, because of a lot of different things. So no, it has nothing to do with that. The Black women per capita are the most educated and qualified people in the country, but are they being treated as such? No. Absolutely not. This is not about merit. If it's about merit, we should be sitting out recruiting more Black people. Because quite frankly, Black people, women, members of the LGBTQ plus community per capita are more qualified than the other candidates, particularly heterosexual, cisgender white men. So the whole conversation is
Velma, that's your
topsy-turvy.
mic drop. Right? That was the mic drop.
That was it right there.
That was it.
Yeah.
Let's try not to throw the mics around. But
right there.
that was the mic drop.
I can't go behind that.
I know.
You're like, I have nothing left to say.
No. He said it.
He said it.
All right.
It's been
all
a long
right.
2 weeks. Okay?
Yeah.
I think we're already.
Well, I just want to say we're only 2 weeks in. I was at a lunch with a really remarkable group of female leaders earlier this week, and they were just kind of talking about how you find the work-life balance. And, I'm like, humor is really helpful right now. So the joy I'm having with the three of you, I'm just so grateful for. All right. So you've laid it all on the line. We know where we're at. Literally, I don't think anyone wants to go after Matthew right now.
I'm just drinking what's in my cup now. And it is water. Even though we all need something different.
All right. So then here's the question, right? What's the call to action for folks, right? Whether in the workplace, community, education, what is the call to action right now? I think it's show up, right? Courage.
Well, for me, I have a couple of different call to actions. The call to action for the business community is to build businesses that solve problems. Build businesses that solves a problem. And do not be afraid to have your voice. Your voice matters. If you're sitting in fear and you're looking to see what everyone else is saying and or doing, and you're not exercising your voice right now, that is a problem. And quite naturally, you're doing the community and your children a disservice if you have any.
Well, inaction is action, right?
Action is action, and I think that's one of the action. And so the second action item I have, I was recruited to Arizona when Mayor Ortega passed an anti-discrimination ordinance in Scottsdale. That's why I actually came to Arizona.
Well, and we educated for 7 years in Scottsdale.
Wow. I've been here 4 years. And to see what's happening, I don't want to talk about it until I see what's going to happen after the 11th. But I will say that it is despicable, to say the least, of what they're trying to go back and dismantle the Office of Scottsdale Diversity. It's interesting to even know that they would consider doing such a thing. And so the call to action there is speak up, stand strong, and stand for something. Because when you stand for when you don't stand for anything,
you're standing for something.
You're standing for something.
And they're doing all of that, even though I believe Don was the founding director, almost lost his life and part of his limbs in a bombing perpetrated by a white supremacist who drove all the way from another state here. So the evidence that an office like that is necessary has been proven through the violence that people have had to endure just to keep it going.
And for folks who are tuning in right now, I want to kind of bring up what you're talking about, which is on February 11th, Tuesday, February 11th. There is a meeting at in the City Council, Scottsdale City Council, and agenda item number 14 is to remove the Office of Diversity, and again to go to, and I quote, to return to merit-based hiring. And that Office of Diversity has been bombed, to your point, in the early 2000s, Dr. Whitaker. And Velma, you came to the great state of Arizona because Scottsdale enacted an inclusive non-discrimination policy, right? And we played a large part in educating and building business and faith coalitions and educating the residents and elected officials in Scottsdale to get that over the line. 7 years we were in Scottsdale working to get that over the line. And to see this attempt to roll back a diversity office that's been in place in the city of Scottsdale since 1996. And I think what we all believe is the real target is the inclusive NDO. How will that impact not just Scottsdale, but this great state?
Yeah, because if it's merit-based, then why would you want to dismantle D&I? D&I is merit-based.
Yeah. All right. Final question. Trying to end on a high note.
Well, I'll end on a high note. But that's action. That's the
Teniqua,
part
what
of
is
our
your
work.
dream for Arizona's Black community?
What is my dream?
What is your dream?
I'm going to actually read something because, I run an African American Leadership Institute program, and these leaders are every day trying to be a part of the change. And yesterday, one of the leaders from our graduating class of 2024, Savannah Stansfield, sent me this quote, and they had put together, it was from the Motivational Manifest, and she said, "We are in this together." And underlined, the moment we succeed is when our people say us or we more than I or me.
That right there.
When we see our people celebrating this together, dining together, crying together, and striving together.
Well, I just want to say this on behalf of the great state of Arizona. We are very fortunate for you three. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Angela.